Hey everyone! Thanks for joining us for our next session. Prepare for your fabric exam day and open Q&A. My name's Anna. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we begin, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. Our moderators will be dropping helpful links and checking for questions to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. With that, I would love to turn it over to our presenters for today. Martin, Heidi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Anna. And hey, Martin, I'm super excited to join you all today. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. We are going to talk all things preparing for that exam day. We're going to focus on DP 600 and DP 700 because we're all about fabric in today's session. So welcome. A little bit about me. My name is Heidi Hastings. You would have picked up from the accent that I'm from somewhere else. I'm from Australia. I am a data platform MVP and MCT. You've possibly seen me on the Fabric Careers Hub or on the Fabric Tech Talk Fridays. I am super excited to talk all things Microsoft and all things data, and feel free to reach out to me on the socials. How about yourself, Martin?
Hey, Martin, can you hear us?
Hey, how you doing, Heidi? Great to see you. So, I'm Martin Catherall, very, very similar background to Heidi. I've been in the Microsoft data analytics space for quite a long time. I can hear you. Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
So good. There's a delay on the stream.
Hey, Heidi, my apologies. There was a bit of a delay. Hopefully Martin joins us again in a moment. But you're doing great. Keep it going.
Oh, good. Well, I can introduce Martin. I've known Martin for years. So he's a data platform MVP, MCT, also based in Australia, same as me. Do check out his website at martincatherall.com, and you can also reach out to him on socials as well. Now, I want to point out we are live. We are live and interactive. That means you can ask questions on the chat, and we will be able to try and answer them. We also have some awesome moderators with us today because we couldn't do this alone. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat and they will try and address them, and even drop a line about where you're from. Today, we have some amazing moderators. I was super, super excited to see that we have the amazing Anna Pummer from New Zealand, another fellow data platform MVP, and also an AI MVP. And we have Greg Lowe. Not to be mistaken, he is an expert in the field, and you are in a absolute experience to have him join us in the moderation area today. So please, please, please ask all those questions because we have some amazing people, not only Martin and I on the stream, but also Greg and Anu in the chat to be able to address everything. Now, Martin, I see you had some internet trouble, but welcome back.
I did indeed, Heidi. Can you just confirm that you can hear me now?
I can indeed. I feel free to introduce yourself, but I gave you a bit of a summary.
All right. I'm sure you did a great job. I don't know if you introduced our moderators, but they're two great people. So I guess it can't hurt if I introduce them for a second time.
Why not?
So we've got the wonderful Greg Lowe, who's down in Melbourne answering questions on this, as well as being a long-time MVP. Greg is also an RD, well known throughout the world, and heads up SQL Down Under in Australia. We've also got the fabulous Anu, who's over in New Zealand. I believe Anu's in Wellington. So we're all the Antipodean crew here. Anu's an MCT and also an MVP as well. So lots of people standing by to answer your questions. Other people in the background too. Me and Heidi will jump in on the chat should we need to. And have a great time. And what have we got in store, Heidi?
Well, we are the last in this series. So this series was all about talking about preparing for the fabric exam, and the tips you learned today and have learned throughout the series, you can apply to any of the Microsoft certification exams. So we are the last, but all of these are available to rewatch. So you can go back to the events page and rewatch any of these sessions to give yourself a bit of a reminder of what we've gone through.
So that's fabulous. So we've got a 50% discount for these two exams we're talking about. DP 600, which is the fabric analysis exam, and DP 700, which is the data engineering exam. Obviously both connected with fabric, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So there's a QR code there, and I think at some point during the presentation, we'll drop the link in the chat, but feel free to take advantage of the 50% discount and get that exam booked in. And let's go, Heidi. Let's take it away.
Well, first, let's celebrate the thing that got it all started, really. Power BI came before Fabric, and it's about to turn 10. So come join us in June and July to celebrate Power BI's birthday. It has its own exam with the 300 exam. So if you want to check that one out too, but definitely check out this QR code and come join all of the community and do all things Power BI and celebrate that birthday in style. Bring your friends too. Anyone that's never experienced Power BI, bring them along.
Yeah, it sure does seem very short time since Power BI came out. 10 years, that's absolutely fantastic. And I guess we can draw an analogy with Fabric there. You know, Fabric's now been out just over a year, coming up to 2 years, and it's getting better all the time. So hopefully it follows that cadence and becomes a super cool product like Power BI has become. But if you want to get more involved in the community, you've got the opportunity to perhaps become a Fabric super user, one of the heroes of the community, along with the MVPs and the Microsoft PGs who chip in on various social platforms. So, you know, if you want to join the Fabric community, that would be really great. You can write some blog posts, you know, you'll get noticed, and that's how you might become a Fabric super user. Publish the tutorials, the demos. You see people like Gilbert from South Africa doing it. Lots of other people, lots of MVPs who are really well known. Get kudos off other people and work your way into the program. And it's all about community and helping your team. And obviously that helps the product get better as well. So I think that's enough from me, Heidi. What have we got in store about getting certified?
Well, today we're all about preparing for that exam day, and we want to allow you to ask questions as well. So there will be time for open Q&A. But like I said, you can always pop questions in the chat all throughout today's webinar. But, well, why do we get certified? That's one of the key things people ask us in the community. And so we wanted to share with you some of the reasons that you might go through the certification process. Certifications aren't for everyone though, so we understand that if it's not for you, that's okay. But if it's something you want to give a go, why not get that 50% off QR code scanning that you'll see later in the slides as well, and give it a go. I mean, one of the things that I love is it allows you the ability to demonstrate that you're proficient in something, because otherwise you could have read all the docs, you could have run through and played with Fabric, but how can you demonstrate that you are industry certified and recognized? So being able to demonstrate that you have a level of skill set with Fabric by taking these exams, it gives you that opportunity to be recognized for that effort and for your knowledge. It might mean you can get hired faster. The data industry is a huge industry and it's hard to differentiate sometimes. So having these certifications gives you the ability to set yourself apart from other people within the world, so that you can be recognized with Fabric, and that industry professionals, when they're reviewing your application, can see that you have these certifications. But what are some other reasons that we might get certified? Maybe get rewarded, rewarded for hard work, demonstrating your expertise. Maybe it's so you can get promoted in your career, if that's one of the reasons they're looking for promotions.
I think that's right. I think people, got different motivations depending on where you are in your career. So, if you may be a new graduate starting off, taking a certification can, just demonstrate to people looking at your CV, things like LinkedIn, that, you've got the motivation to study something in industry, fabric analysis, fabric engineer, and it shows a willingness to move forward. Whereas maybe on the other end of the scale, if you're kind of been in the industry a long time, you've got a lot of experience, which obviously counts a great deal, but showing that you've got the skills to work through things in a best practice manner, and couple that industry experience with your certifications, I think that's another motivation. So I think it depends where you are in your career, the motivation you might have, Heidi.
Yeah, I know a couple of years back, I wasn't a huge fan of doing certifications. Then it was like, the travel bug and everything. I did one, and then I added another one and another one. I think I got more than 10 now. And it's kind of gamification for me now. It's like, let's go study, let's go sit the exam. If I pass, awesome. If I don't, I love it. You get this report that says how well you went through all the sections, and it gives you the ideas on learn modules to give yourself a better shot next time. And then I give it another go, and I'm like, ooh, this is great. So most of the time, sometimes it takes me a couple of goes, but other times I get it first time. And it's always really rewarding to get that pass at the end. You're like, yeah.
Sure is. And that's a great comment there about the feedback. So, whether you've passed or you've failed, getting that feedback is really important, knowing what you could do better at. I mean, very few people walk into these exams and get 100% and, cleared everything. So people might get about 80-90%, and they get feedback to say where they could improve. And if you've got less than that, no big deal. You can work on the feedback and you can have another go, Heidi.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's great to take advantage of those 50% off QR codes that you see throughout these sessions, because it can be costly to sit these exams. But when you've got those discount opportunities, or you've got support from your organization, what's stopping you giving it a go? I like them. I like it's fun.
Yeah, and hopefully our advice will stop you taking multiple exams, and hopefully you'll all pass first time.
Yeah, there's some other stats, that we've found across the industry. When you look at it, when you think 26% reported promotions are getting certified, when you look at these stats, the numbers don't lie. It's great to be able to see that other people are having these benefits. And so it may transpire that you'll get a salary increase, or you'll get a promotion in your job, or you'll be able to go for another career opportunity, or you want to shift careers. You might currently be in analytics and you want to switch over to engineering. The certifications kind of give you that sort of benchmark for how you're going.
Yeah, absolutely, Heidi. And if you've got a bit more experience, which maybe we fall into that category, looking at these to maybe get promoted, or maybe just to have the satisfaction that the industry best practice and the right way to do things. I think that's a motivation in itself. But some really good stats there, like 90% more productive people who've got certifications, maybe 60% more efficient. All good stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing to realize is certifications is not the only thing that Microsoft offer as well. They've got the applied skills. So there's 4 applied skills, which are like testable labs. So you go in, you start a lab, it gives you a scenario and a series of steps that you need to achieve. And as you go through them, you have an environment where you're actually applying your knowledge in the platform. And then when you finish the lab, it goes through and marks whether you're successful or not. So those applied skills are another way on top of the theoretical exam that you can do to be able to show that you've got some skills in that area.
And yeah, and that's a really good point, Heidi. Like, if you want to practice maybe what an exam feels like, it's not moderated, it's not proctored. You can just sit down wherever you like on your couch, do an applied skill, see how you go. It's good stuff. Gets you prepared and gets you motivated.
Yeah, and a great question that's come up in the chat is certifications are one area, experience is the other. And what do you do when you're a new person in the field, and how do you get that experience, and how do you demonstrate that? Really great question. It can be hard if you're not currently working in an active role that allows you to demonstrate that experience. But some of the other ways you can do it are what Martin and I do all the time in the community. We present at different events on that technical expertise that we have by playing with the different products. Fabric is one that allows you to spin up a trial tenant. So if you go to the Microsoft Docs, you go aka.ms/learn, and you'll be in the docs area, and you can look at the Fabric trial instructions. You spin up a tenant, you start applying your different knowledge in that tenant, you can then demonstrate that by doing YouTube videos, blog posts, jump on the forums, as we said, with that super user persona, and be able to help other people with their questions. Go to the different events around the world. So we have user groups globally in the Fabric space, Power BI and Fabric. Even sometimes we cross over into the Power Platform area because things like Copilot Studio, Power Apps all have integrations with Fabric. Being able to demonstrate that expertise in different ways, even if you have a personal project that you want to apply Fabric with. For example, I remember years ago, Matt Allington did stats on rainfall in his area to be able to determine the water tank sizing that he was going to put on his property. So it's really good for those of you new in the industry. Go to those events, go to those user groups, potentially become a speaker if that's something you're interested in. Start a GitHub repo that's public that you can share your different solutions that you've built for personal projects, as long as they're not commercial sensitive. Don't put those out there on the public internet. But if you're just doing some little projects at home, applying the skills, go through the end-to-end tutorials and demonstrate your knowledge through those ways, which gives you that experience from a different approach. What do you think, Martin?
I think great stuff, Heidi. But have you noticed, I think on the next slide, we talk about the fact that the data skills shortage is, like, it's no secret. And these certifications that, they help maybe bridge that gap. There's a massive gap between the amount of the demand for data professionals and the amount of available talent in the industry or in the world. And that's like a bit of a concern for people in industry in general. So having a certification, I think, kind of makes you stand out a bit and will help you get into that space where you can actively contribute to the role that you're in, the data engineering or data analysis role that you are going forward to. So because analysis play an important part in like employability. If you're a student, these skills can take you forward. And then you've showed you've got the ability to learn and the motivation to go forward and learn in a structured way. Like we're saying, some of these data having these certifications, they can be the difference between getting a lower salary and maybe a slightly higher salary. Is that your experience, Heidi?
Yeah, it is. And the other thing I've done is sometimes you don't necessarily start in an organization in your ideal role, but you start by joining the organization in a role that allows you to work with data. It might be working in a service desk, helping do support. It may be working in the finance department, helping them with some reporting, and then you transition in. Once you're inside that company, you get visibility on the different roles that they have available. I know in Australia, sometimes we feel a bit like unicorns because we play multiple roles. And in other organizations, we get to specialize in our field. So we can specialize in data engineering, specialize in data analysis or data visualization. But sometimes you've got to play many hats. So it kind of just depends. You got to get your start somewhere. But if you can't get it directly in a company from the get-go, join the community, learn from all of us, grow with us. We'll help you. But that's some of the things you can do.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Heidi. Great stuff. I see that there was a comment in the chat there that says, like, oftentimes experience trumps my certifications. This is coming from like someone who's a new student. How would you approach this on the changing landscape? And what I would say, obviously, when you are a student and you're starting off, you've got little to no experience, but if you can, as well as the certifications, maybe get some projects going on, maybe GitHub, other social media, things that you can show in, an interview. You can say, obviously I've worked towards DP600, DP700, for example, and I've also took the time to do this project on GitHub. I've worked through these applied skills, and the whole package can maybe it can go some of the way to offsetting someone else who's got a lot of experience but hasn't got any certifications or done anything to sort of push themselves forward. So that's what I'd do in that situation. Have you got any advice on that, Heidi?
I think you've absolutely summarized it well there, Martin. That demonstrating that you're willing to learn and keen to learn, and you'll do these different opportunities sharing your profile of things that you've built. The other thing you can look to do is see if the companies are offering internships, because that will work for non-for-profit organizations. Sometimes they have opportunities to work in the data space on those non-for-profit spaces as well. So sometimes experience, it's hard to get, but give yourself as many opportunities as you can.
Yeah, cool. So let's get into the content, Heidi. What have we got coming up?
Ooh. Well, we thought we better just touch on the fact we're talking all about Microsoft Fabric. Now, if you are going to put this term in your favorite search engine, do prefix it with Microsoft so that you get the SaaS product and not learning all about, different pattern making techniques at the moment. But with Microsoft Fabric, it is that end-to-end analytics platform. It is software as a service, which means everything is kind of all under the one roof, including all your data. Once you bring in the data, you can use the different experiences. So you can use things like the data engineering skills and do notebooks or pipelines. You can switch and do your data science with experiments and notebooks there as well. Or you can switch into something like Power BI and do visualization and create insights off your data. And the more newer stuff in the platform, things like Reflex and Activator, or being able to use data agents and being able to chat with your data. So Fabric is where we're going to focus our core, but we're all about preparing for these exams with Fabric. How do we prepare, Martin?
Well, that is a good point, Heidi. How do we prepare? So I think maybe the starting point, and the starting points could be many and varied. Microsoft Learn is a great one. So, it's got access to modules like applied skills that you've just said. It's got all the exam content on there. It's got what we call the objective domains, where you can see, the areas that you'd be tested in, broken down into maybe big areas. And those big areas have got smaller areas within them. Like you might have a big area that says data engineering, and then you might have a subpoint that says batch data, or a subpoint that says real-time engineering. You might have broken down into Power BI, and then it might say visualization, dashboarding, whatever it is. So definitely go through them. I tend to put them in a spreadsheet and tick them off bit by bit. There's a whole world of things on Microsoft Learn. You also you will have access to Microsoft Learn in the exam. We're going to talk about that in a little deeper in a few slides' time. But when you're preparing for the exam, this is a great place to start. And I think what you can also do, Heidi, is practice.
Yeah, exactly. Like we talk about, this study guide, and we'll go through it in more detail, but it allows you to see the outline of what the exam's going to test you on. It gives you weighting, so you know that this particular topic is going to be higher weighted than another topic. And use this community resources. We talked about things like the user groups. If you go to the Fabric Careers Hub, that'll show you areas where you can join study groups. There are a number of different YouTube channels out there, some officially from Microsoft, some from the community. There's people like Will Needham, who's doing a full series on DP600 and DP700. I know Data Mozart, Nicola, has a series of blog posts that go through the different topics for the different exams and allow you to click through and learn more. But there's some awesome resources in our community to take advantage of. And there's also these study groups that you can join so you can work with the community. So you do what's best for you. If you do by reading, you read through the study guides, you read through the docs. If you do by applying, look at the tutorials and apply those and look to use the applied skills as another way to test that knowledge. If you do by watching videos, then go to the YouTube series, rewatch these sorts of series that we've got going on Reactor. There's also the Live Learn series that Microsoft offer with the community, and go through those and learn by watching as well. There's so many different options that we've got. And we've got some little short links there with the AKMS I Am Ready, DP700 and DP600 Prepare, to give you some more guidance on how you can prepare for the exam.
Yeah, great stuff, Heidi. And good call out to the community people who are putting blogs and things like that out. I also think Reddit is a good up and coming platform where you can communicate with, I think the PGs watch that, the product groups, and there's MVPs on there. So that's a great resource as well. But practice tests are another great resource. Now, obviously, there are companies around who sell these for profit. However, on Microsoft Learn that we've talked about before, you will see a practice test for very nearly every single exam that Microsoft have got out there. So there's a page in there that lists all the exams that Microsoft have got, not just the 2 that we're talking about today. And that'll take you off to a practice test. Practice test normally about 50 questions long. Obviously, it's a little bit different than the exam in terms of you can actually ask for the answer to the question as you go along, or you can not ask for the question and just flick through it like it was a proper exam and be scored at the end. But some great resources to apply knowledge in there. You might get asked a question and you're like, oh, I don't really know what the answer to that is. I can go and research it. And that researching gives you like the muscle memory to, if that question comes up again, it's like, yeah, I remember this. And this is the process I followed to get there. So I can take a reasonable stab at what that answer is. So familiarizing yourself with Microsoft Learn can be a really good thing to do. Do you think that as well, Heidi?
Yeah, and I saw Greg put a great comment in the chat. It's just remember with the practice tests that you do, they're all multiple choice, but the exam itself is not all multiple choice. So the exam itself will give you a different series of different questions. So some will be multiple choice, some will be pick one or more, some will be what they call a build list, where you have to build the steps in the order to achieve the outcome, and the case studies, where it's giving you a scenario for a particular company and then a series of questions about that scenario, so that you can try and help the organization. But yeah, different questions, different styles.
Great call out, Heidi. And there's another thing we need to mention. I think it's on the next slide, about having access to Microsoft Learn as part of the exam. Now, I've got a bit to say about this. Obviously, you will have access to Learn, but I personally, we'll get Heidi's comments in a minute, I personally would go into the exam with the mindset of I'm not going to look at Learn. I'm just going to do it off the top of my head. Now, you might come across a question that you actually really are like, oh, really stumped on, you don't know. So what would I do at that point? I would avoid going into the trap of trying to find the answer on Learn. What I'd do is I would take my best stab at the answer. If it's a multiple choice answer, you obviously pick one. If it's a different kind of question, like Heidi talked about before, have a go at the question, but then mark it for review. So you've got that question marked for review. When you come to the end of the exam, when you've answered all the questions, you will get the chance to go back and look at all your answers, and you'll be able to say, yeah, okay, question 10, I marked that for review. I've answered everything. I've got maybe 10, 20 minutes left of the exam. I can now go and look at Microsoft Learn and try and find the answer to that question if I'm not happy with the answer I gave. So that's where I personally would use Microsoft Learn. This is similar to like doing open book exams at college. Sometimes people think, oh, I've got access to all these resources. I don't really have to study. For me, that's not really true. Could be a bit of a red herring. Yeah, you've got access to the resources, but using those resources is going to take you time. And in a time limited scenario, you've actually got a finite amount of time. So you might have a different take on this, Heidi, but that's my advice.
No, mine's the same. I look at the timer, and you'll see on the screen, you can see a little time window that in the new platform for exams, that can be hidden as well. So if timers can cause you a bit of anxiety, you can hide that. But when you're looking at the time, I try and spend as little on each question as possible. If I know the answer, I put it in straight away. I might spend, a few moments thinking about it and putting in an answer. If I'm totally unsure, I definitely mark it review and I keep moving, because it's really important to try and answer as many of the questions as you can. And there's always the opportunity to come back and do that review. So there are some questions you can't come back and review, like a case study. Once you've done that, it's done. But the other questions, you have the option of tagging for review and coming back. And I avoid using the learn option until that point, because then I know, okay, I've given it my initial best shot. I've used my muscle memory. I've done the what I think is the correct answer. And then when I'm going through those review questions, if I think I might be able to find it on the docs, I'll open up the docs and I'll go through the learn and see if I can find the answer to that, because it's really hard once you do start looking at that, plus I like reading the docs generally, so I kind of go in my little train of thought and forget I'm doing an exam otherwise. But make sure, yeah, you follow the different instructions throughout the exam. If it says once you do this section, you can't go back and review it, then you need to make the choice as to whether you're going to spend some time in the learn or you're going to keep moving to the next section. So really great.
Yeah, great advice, Heidi. So have we got anything to say about study guides coming up?
We do indeed. Now let's have a look at those study guides, and I'm going to drag them on the screen so you can see them sort of more live from the screenshots. So what a study guide gives us, the first thing you want to take into account, the study guide itself. Each exam will have a study guide and the format will be the same for all of them. So as you go through, it'll tell you about what's the purpose of this particular document, some general useful links about the exam. You can also go into a simulated exam area so you can see the platform firsthand and be able to understand what is it going to be like to take the exam. And I highly recommend giving yourself a lot of time to get the exam started, because I know the tech check last time I did it, it will check all the software on your computer if you're doing it remote and proctored. That took me about 6 minutes just to go through those checks. So you want to make sure that you've given yourself enough time to get your laptop all set up, or your desktop, whatever the case may be, get into the platform, and then you're good to go. But once we scroll through, we'll get to a section that identifies the skills that are going to be measured. These exams are role-based exams, so make sure that when you're looking at it, if your role that you're doing day to day, it may go across multiple exams. You could be both an analytics person and an engineering person. So the exams are role-based focused. In this case, we have our major topic area and the weighting for that topic. So to maintain a data analytics solution is going to be set to 25 to 30% of the exam. That also indicates the amount of questions you're going to get. The higher weighted a section is, the more questions you'll have in that area. We then have our subtopics where we talk about more granular areas, like in this case, implementing security and governance, and then even lower again. So as you're going through and doing your learning, you want to look to go through each of these different topic areas and make sure that you have a general understanding of them, and then some applied knowledge as well. Some of them are not super common because the exam is testing that role. So in your organization, you might not use sensitivity labels, sometimes referred to as information protection. So you want to make sure if you're not using it in your day-to-day, that you've at least gone through the modules for that area and you have an understanding. And so as we go through, you see different sections. So for an analytics engineer, preparing your data is more critical. So 45 to 50% of the exam is going to be focused on that particular topic. So you'll see how we've got all these different topic areas. Now, interestingly, with DP 700, it seems similar in overlap. That's because data engineers and analytics engineers have an overlap, especially when it comes to using the Fabric platform. Your analytics engineer is going to sit more in your semantic models, Power BI, and focusing on that space and tuning in that area. Whereas your data engineer is going to be looking more pipelines and notebooks and managing your engineering and your data loads and your data transformations. So their profiles are overlapping. So there's a level of similarity. So consider taking the exams at a close time, because if you're studying for one and there's overlap with the other one, you might as well take both of them in a similar time frame. So you can see here, like implementing and managing 30 to 35%, but we're looking at things like life cycle management, how we're managing our solutions, how we're configuring version control. We're also looking at security and governance. We saw that on DP 600 with the workspace level controls and the item level controls. Now, a thing to point out, preview features are not necessarily going to be in the exam. Yeah. So it's more focused on features that are generally available, but these exams do get reviewed and updated all the time. So when you are looking at the exam today, if you sit it today, you may have a series of questions. If you decide to wait 6 months and do more learning, you might get entirely different questions as they review the exams and update it.
And that is a really good point, Heidi, about the preview features. Obviously, with Fabric being so young, as it were, there's a lot of things that come into public preview, and some might remain in public preview for a month or two and then go to GA, what we call general availability. Some of the things might remain in private preview for a lot longer. So that's a great point about, if you've left it a long time between studying and actually taking the exam, things may have changed. They may not, but I'd just be aware of that. Another great call like you did there, Heidi, was, going through this objective domain that you've got on the screen and ticking things off, because no one knows everything. There's a huge lot to learn on all of these exams, and while you might be proficient at, I don't know, 80-90% of it, because you do that in your day job all the time, there might be that 10% where, you know, features you've not really touched much at all. So just going through it, going, oh yeah, you know, there's a bit on version control there, and I don't do a lot on version control. Let's just make sure I know the basics on that, and tick it off. So really great advice there, Heidi.
Yeah, and even looking at things like the languages, PySpark, SQL, and KQL, you don't necessarily use all of them, but with the exam, you won't have a choice as to which language they throw a question at you on. So you make sure you have a little bit of understanding at least each of them, because if you solely focus on one and all your questions are on the other one, you're going to find it a bit challenging. And the other thing is, we've got here where we could look at batch data, but batch data is not the only data that data engineers work with. We also work with streaming data. So you want to look at both of the different profiles there, whether you're working with batch data or stream data. Look at the real-time intelligence within Fabric, as well as the data engineering experience within Fabric.
And I think that you just brought up about streaming and batch data. We'll use that as an analogy to say, you know, say you get a question that asks you about a specific topic, and I'll use the example of streaming data there. So the question might be termed about real-time data. So you can kind of think straight away, okay, maybe I'm not an expert on this real time, but, you know, I need to maybe eliminate some answers. So there might be answers on there that relate to batch data or static data. You can probably eliminate them straight away. And then you might be left with, say, 2 answers, or you might even be left with 1 answer, and, you know, that's the answer I'm going to go for. So, you know, just applying knowledge that you've gained that's maybe not you're totally familiar with something, but you've got the answer to kind of work out what might or might not be the right answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like you talked about earlier, take this study guide, potentially put it into Excel and go through each section and see how you're going through each one. Because you never know whether you've got that area already covered with your experience, or whether you need to read up on it, or if the terminology reference is a little bit different to what you're used to. And the other thing is just give it a go. Like when you read through the questions, they're not designed to completely stump you, but sometimes there's little things in the question that can give you hints as to what the answer might be. You know, sometimes it's just reading that question a couple of times over and making sure that you're not skipping some of the words. Where naturally, as humans, when we read things, sometimes we can make assumptions. So sometimes just take a little bit moment to read that question thoroughly and go, okay, in this case, because of what's in the question itself, this wouldn't apply or that wouldn't apply. And I even find sometimes I don't know the answer. I give it a go. A couple of questions later, I remember, and then I think, oh, let me just go back to that previous question and put what I think was a more appropriate answer in.
Great stuff on this operational domain, Heidi. Let's have a look at the exam basics. So what is the format and the scoring of the exam? So just understanding the basics of the exam, you're going to probably get around 60 questions. And I think you've got 2 hours for the exam. So let's just, for the ease of math, say 60 questions, you've got 2 hours. So you know straight away, maybe I've got 2 minutes per question. Some questions are going to take you a lot less. You're going to know the answer like immediately. Other questions you're probably going to have to think about, and they may take you a bit longer than 2 minutes. But try and not spend like 10 minutes on one question. You know, like we were saying previously, you know, have a crack at the question. If you're a bit unsure, have a crack, mark it for review. How much time have you got? 120 minutes. You do get to give feedback, and that's additional time, and you do get to do a survey, that's additional time. But for the exam, you've got a finite amount of time. So whatever it is, work out that, you know, I've got X amount of time to do the exam. I've got Y amount of questions. So, you know, I want to spend a minute, 2 minutes on each question, but answer questions as quickly as you can. Case studies are a little bit different. They might be, you know, you might have, say, let's say you've got 5 questions. Now, 5 questions, that doesn't sound a lot, but remember, this is a case study. So what you've got to do is read the background. There might be technical requirements. there might be business requirements, there might be other background going on there. So the way I kind of approach these is I would actually look at questions first, if you can, if you're able to. And maybe my first skim of the case study would be reasonably quick. You can obviously take in a lot of information in that time. And if you can answer the questions based on one read, that's great. If you can't, maybe you're going to have to go back and read again. But these are probably what I find the trickiest questions. Would you say that, Heidi, or have you got another tricky type of question that you think?
No, I like the questions. I like all the different styles of questions. I find some of the most fun ones are those drag and drop ones, or where there's a drop down and you can go in and pick them. But the case study, it used to stump me a lot because I used to read the entire thing and then you're short on time to actually answer the questions. So I take the same approach as you. I read the question and then I targeted read the case study, because it's often broken down into different sections, the case study. So I can read the question. If it's focused on the finance department's requirements for access, I can go into the requirements and look at what the finance department specifically was addressed, and then try and answer the question.
And it's just a call out on that slide for there's more than one type of question, and you've already been over that, Heidi. Greg made a great comment in the comments section there. But let's have a look at how the exams are scored.
Yes, obviously exam, you don't have to get 100%. 100%, of course, is the ultimate goal. If you're getting 100%, you've, of course, passed. The score ranges from 0 to 1,000. So even though you've got those 60 odd questions, the weighting of each question is different. So some questions are actually worth more points than other questions, but the passing score is usually always 700. So not 70%, 700. So 700 out of the possible 1,000. So as you're going through some of those questions, you notice some are more complex in the amount of details and the amount of answers. Potentially they are worth more points than others. So just be mindful that there's the weighting for a section. There's also the questions being worth more than 1 point. The cut score is where they determine across the different scores. That's why exams go into beta first. And in beta, they have a number of people taking the exams, and then they look at the results, and then they look at sort of the bell curve and everything that's going on and work out the appropriate cut score that they're going to apply to an exam. And they also make sure the difficulty is appropriate. There's also no points deducted. So even if you get a wrong answer, you just don't get points. You don't lose points, but you don't get points. So as you're going through, go with your gut. Don't overthink it. Take a deep breath. Don't panic. If you're someone who suffers from anxiety, use those techniques that you've had, whether it be, pause for a moment and self-center yourself, whether it be take a few breaths, whether it be doing the, count to 4, breathe in, count to 4, breathe out. Whatever techniques are for you that can help you reduce the stress level as you're going through the exam, because it can be a little bit of stress as you're working your way through. Sometimes your brain plays a bit of tricks on you and you can't quite think of that answer. Don't panic. Just tick it for review, come back later. And so make sure you answer every question. So look at that timer, give yourself a bit of an indication of how much time you want to spend on each question, and maybe check in every so often to look at where you are through the questions versus where you are through the time, and adjust your application of taking the exam.
And then tips and tricks are really good, Heidi. I like that one, go with your gut. If you do come across a question you're a bit stuck on, give it your best shot, mark it for review, and go back to it at the end. Don't spend like 10 minutes on it. But let's get into this, Heidi. What to expect on exam day. Now, you're going to be at home. Well, let's say you're going to be at home, because if you go to an exam booth, you're all going to be set up. You don't have to do any setup at all. But let's just think about taking the exam. If you've never took one before, this might be a little bit, it will be a bit unfamiliar to you. So you can take it at home. You can take it on your laptop. That's all good. The technology works really well. We'll go through that in a minute. You download something, you just follow what's there. But what you're going to need to do, you're going to need to be a reasonably clean room. Now, the room doesn't have to be bare with a single desk in it. That's kind of a bit unrealistic. I actually used to do that the first time I took an exam. I'd clear one of my children's bedrooms and I'd just have a desk in there. Took a little while to do and a little while to put back. But I was going a bit over the top. So what I've since found out you can do is I've got a desk in the corner of the room. This is like obviously my configuration. Desk in the corner of the room, obviously a chair behind the desk. A bed, there's a bed behind my chair. So I put all the stuff on there that's been on the desk and around bookcases. Just cover it with a sheet, just so you can't see it, which it's got your back to you. You're not going to be able to see it anyway. And then you start the exam. So what do? You download some software. Obviously, you start it through the Pearson VU channel, but you'll download some software. The software will, in fact, point you to download a mobile app. Now, with the mobile app, you just take pictures of the configuration of the room, maybe the front of the desk, the back of the desk, the side of the desk, just so the proctor can see that there's nothing within arm's reach where you possibly could cheat. Now, obviously, 99% of people don't want to do that, but it does happen. So proctor just wants to be sure that you've got a clean room and a clean area where you can start. Funny story, Heidi, about when I did this the first time, because you've actually got to take a picture of yourself and take a picture of your passport. So I took a picture of myself, and it came back straight away. It said there's more than one person in the photograph. And I was like, really? I'm the only person in the house. Little did I know that I caught a picture on the wall behind me that I'd had 4 people in it. So it obviously identified more than one person. I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, I'm digressing a bit. So you take your photos, you take your photographs, and then your laptop will tell you, and the proctor will tell you that is it all good, or you've got to do some rearranging, and then the exam will start. Now the exam will start, your camera will be on, the proctor will be able to see you. I think it's videoed, but do not step away from the computer. If you step away from the computer, you're probably going to fail the exam. If someone comes into the room, you're probably going to fail the exam. But let's like not look at that. Let's just look at doing the exam. You've got 2 hours to do the exam. Let's concentrate on that and move through it. And just take your time, mark things for review if you need to, and you should all be good. Anyway, that's my tips, Heidi. What about yours?
Yeah, so I've had some similar funny stories. I live in a sort of a high density unit location, so the soundproofing's not super great. There's no one else in the room, so I don't have to worry about that. But I have had to let the proctor know that just behind the wall behind me when I'm doing the exam is the entryway to the unit. So if you hear a lot of noise, it's not people in my unit where I am, it's people on the outside having a bit of a party, getting prepared. So make sure, as Martin said, if you're doing it at home, make sure that if you've got, family, friends, parents, someone visiting, even a pet, just make sure they're in another room, or at least let the proctor know. There is an opportunity now with the modified platform that you can take a break from the exam. But when you take a break, means you cannot review any previous question you had up until that point. So if you have the sudden need that you need a glass of water or something, you can take a break and do that. But also remember, with the exam, you're on the internet if you're doing it at home. Have a secondary hotspot. Have your phone at the ready, not right next to your computer, because when they'd be doing the checks, they won't allow it. But consider having a hotspot available to you. If you're running on Wi-Fi, I know in Australia, definitely have a backup source. As you saw earlier in the stream, the internet can be a little fiddly.
Yep.
So you want to do those sorts of things.
Good point there about the drinks, Heidi. You are allowed to have a drink on the table. However, it has to be in a clear container. So what I do, I've got a water bottle. This is my water bottle. It's a clear water bottle. It's just got obviously water in it. It's clear. I can have that on the table. That's no problem at all. I can drink through it in the exam. That's kind of fine. Just some other tips about the exam. Do not kind of talk to yourself. I know that sounds a bit weird, but do not kind of read the question to yourself out loud. The proctor will tell you about that. And if it goes on more than once or twice, you're probably in danger of failing the exam. So don't talk to yourself. We're not all weird. Just don't talk to yourself. Do the exam. Get through all the questions. Finish the exam. There'll be probably a small delay, maybe 30 seconds a minute. And then immediately you'll find out you've either passed and it's yay, or you failed and you need to do it again. Regardless of the result, you will have access to a breakdown of what happened in the exam, not in massive detail. Like Heidi was saying before, this section you got 100% on, this section you only got 20% on. So in fact, you need to concentrate on that section. But it's great that you'll get feedback, and it's great that you'll know straight away if you've either passed or failed the exam.
Yeah, and I think make sure you go through, and if you've got any accessibility requirements, if you do need things like a screen reader or any visual adjustments, have a look at what Microsoft has on offer to support you while you're doing the exam, because we understand that there are accessibility needs for different people. And so Microsoft have different options to support you in taking the exam. So check those out before. Sort of once you've registered for the exam, go have a look through the different options that they can provide to support you to be able to have your best chance of giving that exam a go. And also, when you are sitting the exam, don't panic if technical issues arise. If you're sitting it virtually, there is the ability to talk to the proctor or chat with the proctor. You also have the option to bring up a little whiteboard so you can draw on it, because you can't have pen and paper and pencils and notes on your desk or anything, but you can have it on the screen to be able to take some notes. And as Greg pointed out in the chat, is if you're going to provide feedback, make sure it's focused on the exam itself. If there's things about the product you like and don't like, putting them in the exam feedback, probably not going to achieve anything. Jump on the ideas forums for those ones, and that way you can provide feedback. Even if it's the documentation you read wasn't clear, you have the option of providing feedback for that as well. And in some cases, you can make changes and submit it, including the exam content. You might want to provide feedback about those study guides or about the exam itself. And my favorite bit, it's the most nervous I get when doing the exam, is when I choose to say I have finished, I would like it to be graded, and then the absolute reward, or sort of not so great reward, when the result comes up almost instantaneously, whether you have passed or failed. And failure is okay. It just gives you the opportunity to learn and learn more. But it is rewarding and anxious.
Let's hope we all pass, Heidi. Let's hope everyone passes. But let's round this out with some final tips and tricks. What have you got in store for us here, Heidi?
Well, as we said, we got that study guide. So why not grab a copy of that study guide and work your way through it, look through it, and actually apply the skills. So not only just read about them, but actually try and apply them, because that gives you the best possible opportunity, whether your application knowledge is through watching others doing it or doing it yourself. Give that a go. It kind of more ingrains it in your mind. Even if you take the practice tests and go through them and then kind of try and do them a little bit more out of order, because once you start doing the practice test over and over, you kind of have remembered the practice test. The practice test is not always going to be 100% true to the exam itself. It's kind of just giving you a simulation. So make sure you're going through their study guides. Go through the Learn modules. They're updated all the time. I think in the last challenge series that went out, Microsoft had, I think, 13 different modules about Fabric exams, and those get updated. But once you've already done the module, you can either go back and do it again or see that there's a new module and take that. You can review all the different product documentation. The product teams have done great work in giving us that documentation available on the platform, as well as giving us other avenues like the Live Learn series, the Reactor series, the different YouTube channels for Fabric, and the different areas. I know Fabric Engineering has their own space. Ask others about how they do some of these tasks. If you don't have the opportunity to do it directly, schedule the exam, because it kind of gives you that little nudge to go, right, I've scheduled it now. I've got to give it a go. I've got to set myself up for success. You can reschedule within sort of 48 hours, I believe it is. Yeah. But make sure you give it a go. Schedule some time to study. We all get busy in life. Make sure you carve out some time in your calendar that says, okay, next Sunday, I'm going to spend a couple hours studying, or every day I'm just going to do one module a day, and then I'll go do some study cram sessions and take those practice tests. How about yourself, Martin? What do you think?
Yeah, and well, that's good advice about making time. So you showed before the objective domain and the study guides, and obviously it was broke down into maybe 3 sections and different subsections and that. And you can go through and go, I'm taking the exam in 2 months' time. I've blocked it out. I've got the exam there. For the next, I don't know, every week I'm going to study this little bit, and you can arrange them so they make sense. They go from one stage to the next stage to the next stage. You might want to learn about ingesting data to start with. And then you've ingested data, so curating it or visualizing it or doing something like that. And have a logical flow of the content that you're going to go through to force you into doing the exam, like it says on the slide, a forcing function. I've never really thought about it like that before, but if you've got a date in mind, you're all set. Keep it in mind. Don't put it off. Just do the exam. I'm going to do it on the 20th of next month. I'm all going to be prepared. 21st, I'm going to be all happy. I've passed the exam. So go for it like that, Heidi. And yeah, is that it? Should we round this out with the a few closing slides?
Well, one extra thing is when you schedule that exam, make sure you consider scheduling a backup exam time. I've had exams where there's a technical issue, something's come up, a personal emergency, and I can't sit the exam that day. So I kind of always give myself a second time slot that I'd consider sitting the exam. So I schedule for the first one, and if something comes up, I've already pre-prepared another time slot in my mind that's when I'm going to do it as a backup. Or if I didn't do so well, that's when I'm going to reset it my second time.
Great advice,
50%
Heidi.
off.
I'm learning some tips and tricks on how you do exams here. Like, I'm getting prepared for my next exam myself.
Well, it's a bit of a gamification, isn't it? I think you've got over 10 as well. I mean, I never thought I would have 10 exams. Years ago, I would have thought, no, I don't like taking exams. I've finished university. I've finished school. Why do I want to sit more exams? And now I'm like, what one can I take next? What area do I want to learn? Do I want to learn a whole nother domain? And really cool with data, Fabric is not even 2, and already it's got 2 exams. Power BI has 1 exam. Sit all 3, and then you've got 3 exams, and then why not go look at Azure Data as well, or go Power Platform? There's just exams for everything these days.
Cool stuff. Great that you're showing that 50% discount, Heidi. That is good for our audience. Make a note of it, get the exam scheduled, and get it passed.
Yeah, watch out for the big conferences, because often they do challenges as well that can give you discount exam codes. I know FabCon's coming up, Fabric Community Conference over in September. There's the Power Platform Conference later in the year, and then of course Ignite happening in further in the year as well. Look out for those big events for more discount codes.
And just to say, obviously these have all happened in the past. People have gone through sessions like this dedicated to whatever, batch engineering, visualization, whatever it was. You go back and watch them. They're available on the YouTube channel. I think there's one still coming up. You've got that June the 5th one in the American time zone. Obviously, we're in Australia. We're a day ahead, so to speak. But they are all available for your perusal on the YouTube channel.
And don't forget about our birthday party, Power BI's birthday, June and July this year. Bring your friends, scan the QR code, RSVP to the Power BI event, and always have a bit of fun with Power BI, because how many times have we seen that icon logo change over the years? It's always different. It's always staying yellow, but it's always fun. And I love it. If you've never seen Henry the Owl, the little owl down the bottom left of the screen, it's probably a good thing if you've never seen him, because it usually indicates there's a bit of a problem going on the platform. But if you're not aware, Henry the Owl appears when the platform's having a bit of a moment and needs to take a bit of a breather. Sometimes that Henry the Owl will appear on your screen. But scan that QR code, join us for the birthday celebrations, and of course, get yourself prepared for the exam.
Yeah, great stuff, Heidi. So I've learned another thing there. Henry the Owl. I didn't know Henry had a name. All good stuff. Love the hat on the Power BI logo. But hey, Heidi, you did amazing there. I've learned a lot of stuff off you today. I'm going to present with you again. Thank you very much.
I had a bit of a laugh. We did not mention AI and Copilot, so I'm going to sneak it in now because we've got a minute. Use Copilot to help you learn as well. But also remember that AI requires data. So whilst there's a lot of growth in the AI industry, they need data to be able to make AI really shine. So as a data professional, you are the foundation for a lot of that AI capability. So consider looking at AI jobs as well as data jobs, because they will also have data in them.
Well, there you go. We tried to make it through without mentioning AI and Copilot, but Heidi had to get there. But anyway, thanks for your time. Thanks for your time, Heidi. Thanks to our audience for dropping in. I hope, well, I'm sure our moderators have added to the value you've got from this in the chat, and I'll see you again. Over to you, Heidi.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Shout out to everyone who attended today. And for those of you who are watching back the recording, I hope you were able to get some lessons learned and some tips and tricks from us today. And do attend the other sessions. They might be the same topic, but different perspectives. Shout out to Anu and Greg, some of my great friends all time. Love hanging out with them. They are the best. So excited to have them helping you in the chat and helping us get through this session today. And moderator, and also Shannon, who's also in the chat moderating, and Anna, who's our studio producer, for being behind the scenes, making this all go off without a hitch. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Good stuff. See you later.
Thank you all for joining, and thank you to our speakers. This session is a part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. We'll see you at the next one.